A little barefoot boy stepped out of the shadows and whispered to a millionaire, "Don't get in your car tomorrow." She laughed and walked away. But the next day, death nearly found her, and the only one who saw it coming was the child she ignored. What did he know? How did he know? And why did he choose to save her? If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video and tell us where are you watching from. Now let's jump into the story. Camille Rivers walked down the quiet street with her coat still catching the scent of champagne and cologne from the rooftop party. Her heels tapped against the wet pavement, each step steady and sure. Her phone buzzed softly in her hand. She glanced down, checking her calendar for tomorrow's full schedule. Brunch at 9, investor call at 11, gala fitting by 3. She smiled to herself. Always booked, always busy. The city around her hummed low. Tired from the day the rain had stopped just minutes ago, leaving puddles on the ground that mirrored neon signs and tall buildings. It was late, and the block she chose to walk down was nearly empty. Just the sound of passing traffic a few streets away and the faint drip of water from a fire escape. Camille liked this time of night, quiet but not lonely, peaceful but still alive. Within came the voice, soft but clear, and somehow it cut through the silence like a blade through cloth. "Don't ride in your car tomorrow," it said. Camille stopped, blinking. Her eyes searched for the speaker, and there he was, standing beneath the flickering glow of a street lamp. A boy, maybe 8 or 9 years old, no shoes, thin legs poking out from 2 short jeans, a shirt that had once been bright, but was now faded and torn at the collar. Camille tilted her head, uncertain if she'd heard him right. "Excuse me?" she asked, taking a cautious step forward. The boy didn't move, didn't flinch. His hands stayed at his sides, his eyes locked on hers. "If you get into your car tomorrow," he said, "you won't live to see the next night." The words weren't shouted, but they felt louder than traffic or thunder. They hit the space between them like a stone dropped in still water. Camille stared at him, a laugh bubbling up from her throat before she could stop it. "What is this?" she said, letting out a sharp, amused breath. "Some kind of urban fortune teller thing?" She shook her head, smiling with disbelief. "Kid, do you know who you're talking to?" The boy didn't answer, he just looked at her with the same steady gaze. No fear, no anger, just something deeper, something ancient and quiet. "There are people waiting," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "If you ride tomorrow, they will find you." Camille frowned now, the amusement slipping from her lips like smoke from a dying fire. "Who put you up to this?" she asked, scanning the sidewalk, expecting to see a hidden camera, some social prank. But the street remained empty. Just her and the boy, and the reflections of the city blinking in the puddlish straightened her shoulders, her tone turning sharp. "You should go home," she said, her voice cool now. "It's not safe out here for kids, especially ones giving death warnings to strangers." He stepped forward once, not aggressive, just closer, like he needed her to hear him more clearly. "It's not a joke," he said. "I don't know why I know things, but I do, and I saw you, and I saw the car, and I saw what comes after." Camille took a small step back, something in her chest tightening, not from fear exactly, but from a sudden and unexplained feeling she didn't like a thread had been pulled loose inside her. "Good night," she said quickly, her voice firm again, turning away, walking faster now, her heels clicking louder with each step. Boy didn't follow. He didn't even turn his head. She glanced back once near the corner, and he was gone. No trace left, not even the sound of footsteps. Just the drip of rain and the quiet city breathing around her when she reached her building. The doorman greeted her with a polite nod. The elevator doors slid open with a soft ding, and Camille stepped inside. Her reflection stared back at her from mirrored walls, her hair neat, her lipstick perfect, her eyes uncertain up in her penthouse. She kicked off her shoes, poured herself a glass of wine, and walked to the wide windows that framed the city like a painting. "That was strange," she muttered, sipping slowly, trying to shake the feeling the boy's voice had left behind. was just a kid. A homeless kid, maybe. Playing with stories to get attention or sympathy. She told herself it didn't mean anything. She had a driver, private security, routes mapped out by professionals. She was safe. She was always safe, but even as she settled into her leather chair, even as she opened her laptop to review slides for tomorrow's presentation, the boy's voice floated back into her head. Not loud, not forceful, just steady and quiet like before. Don't ride in your car tomorrow. The wine no longer tasted smooth. The city no longer looked still. Her schedule suddenly felt less like structure and more like a trap. She closed the laptop, stood up, and drew the curtains closed. And somewhere deep inside her, a seed of doubt took root and refused to leave. Sunlight slipped through the tall windows of Camille's penthouse, golden and quiet, the kind of morning that pretends everything is peaceful. Camille stood in front of her mirror, brushing her jacket smooth. Her reflection was calm, confident, but behind her eyes something was off. A flicker. Like a light that didn't want to stay on. She grabbed her phone, double-checked her schedule, and walked down to the lobby where her driver, Martin, stood by the black sedan, polished and gleaming in the light. Martin gave her a warm smile, always polite, always ready. "Morning, Miss Rivers," he said, pulling open the car door. Camille paused just for a moment, her hand hovering over the door handle. The boy's voice came back to her, quiet and strange. "Don't ride in your car tomorrow." She took a slow breath, then shook her head. Nonsense, she thought. Just a dream clinging to her mind. Nothing more. Everything all right? Martin asked, his brows slightly raised. Camille smiled quickly and nodded. "Yes. Just thinking about the day ahead," she said, sliding into the backseat. The leather was cool and familiar. The city moved outside the window like a painting, in motion as the sedan pulled into traffic. The expressway wasn't too crowded, which was unusual. Camille checked her emails, answering 2, deleting 5, and forwarding 1 to her assistant. Her fingers moved fast, her brain faster. Numbers, meetings, plans. They filled her mind until the sudden blast of a horn shattered her focus. A truck up ahead swerved wildly. Its wheels screeched against the road. The trailer tilted dangerously, boxes crashing through the rear doors and spilling across lanes. Martin's hands gripped the wheel as he shouted, "Hold on." The sedan jerked sharply left, tires squealing. The car swerved so close to the barrier that Camille's shoulder hit the door. Her phone flew from her hand and landed near the floor. The truck roared past, metal scraping metal, so loud it drowned out everything else for a second. Then silence, complete and cold. The kind of silence that follows something terrible that almost happened but didn't. Camille's chest rose and fell fast. Her hands shook as she reached down to pick up her phone. Martin looked into the rearview mirror, his face pale. "Are you hurt?" "No," Camille whispered, her voice not steady. Her mind was racing. The boy's warning thudded in her head like a heartbeat. "You won't live to see the next night." Her hands still trembled as she opened her phone again. A new notification popped up, this time not from her calendar. Security alert. Unusual access attempt blocked. Potential threat identified. Location traced near your office parking route. Camille stared at it, her mouth slightly open. This wasn't random. It couldn't be. The truck, the timing, the alert, and the boy who knew. "Take me home," she said, her voice sharp now, like a knife slicing through her own thoughts. Martin nodded and turned off at the next exit. They drove in silence, Camille's heart still pounding against her ribs, like it wanted to get out and run ahead of her back at the building. She rushed inside, her mind a storm. Every calm part of her had been swept away. She called her security head, her assistant, her personal manager, everyone. Her words came fast, her instructions clear. Find the boy. The one from yesterday. Check the area around 8th and Willow. Shelters, shops, alleys. Ask anyone. Offer food, help, anything. Just find him. Hours passed and she couldn't sit still. She paced from window to window. Each shadow outside made her jump. Every ping from her phone made her flinch. The crash could have killed her. The men the boy mentioned could still be waiting if she hadn't listened, if Martin hadn't reacted. She might not be here. No, her assistant called to confirm patrol units were stationed around the building. But it wasn't enough, not until she knew how that boy had seen it coming, not until she spoke to him again. Something bigger was happening, something she didn't understand, and for the first time in a very long time. Camille Rivers had no answers. Night fell over the city like a slow curtain. Streetlights blinked on one by one, but Camille didn't turn hers off. She sat in her living room with the curtains drawn back, watching the streets below, searching for movement, hoping to see a small figure in a too big shirt appear out of the darkness. Boy had warned her. Calmly, gently, like he'd done it before, like it was a fact, not a guess. He hadn't asked for anything, no money, no praise, just told her the truth and disappeared. Who was he? Where did he come from? How did he know? Camille's phone buzzed. Again, another update, this time from security. Surveillance flagged unfamiliar individuals loitering near the parking structure. No confirmed threat yet, but caution was advised. Her skin prickled, her breath caught. The boy had known. She leaned forward, elbows on knees, staring into the night. Her thoughts wild, her heart beat loud. She whispered aloud into the empty room. Who are you, and how did you save my life? And somewhere beyond the high towers and glowing windows, the boy with the warning was out there, waiting, just like she was. The city grew darker as the evening crept in. Streetlights flickered to life, glowing over empty sidewalks and quiet alleys. Camille stood by the window of her penthouse, arms crossed, her thoughts a tangled web. Below her, the street stretched like a maze, and somewhere in that maze was the boy who had warned her. The boy who somehow knew what no one else could. She hadn't left the building since the crash, not after the near miss, not after the security alert. Her staff worked all day chasing leads, knocking on shelter doors, checking footage, scanning cameras in the neighborhood near 8th and Willow. And now finally, just before sunset, her phone buzzed again. This time with the message she'd been waiting for. We found him, her assistant said, her voice both relieved and unsure. A security team picked him up near the old playground on Riverview Street. He didn't run, just stood there like he was waiting for someone. Within 20 minutes, the boy was standing in her living room, still in the same clothes, his shirt torn at the shoulder, his feet bare and covered in city dust, his curls wild but his eyes calm, steady, just like before. He didn't speak first, just stood quietly, looking around at the tall windows and shining floors and walls covered in art. Camille stepped forward slowly, like someone approaching something fragile. You saved my life, she said softly. I need to know how you knew. The boy looked at her, not scared, not surprised, just thoughtful, like he had already seen this conversation happen somewhere else. My name is Samir, he said, voice low but clear. And sometimes when I sleep outside, I see things in my dreams. Camille blinked. What kind of things? She asked, not sure if she was asking out of belief or disbelief. Samir looked down at his hands, then back up. People, danger. Sometimes the day before something bad happens. I see it in my sleep. It's not always clear, but sometimes it's like a movie, and I just know it's real. Camille sat down slowly, gesturing for him to sit too. She poured a glass of water and handed it to him. His small hands gripped it tightly. You saw me? She asked. You saw what would happen? He nodded once. I saw you in a black car, fast on the road, then a truck hit it. And there were people waiting nearby. 2 men, one had a hood, the other a scar on his cheek. They weren't there to help. They were waiting for the crash. Camille felt a cold shiver trace her spine. She had told security the same details earlier, but he couldn't have known that. There had been no news about the truck, no photos, no names, just internal reports. And yet this boy had seen it all. How often does this happen? She asked, her voice quieter now, like she didn't want to interrupt something sacred. The dreams, not every night, Samir said. But ever since my mom passed, I've had them more. She used to tell me I had a special light that I could feel what others didn't, and after she was gone, the dream started. Camille's heart sank. The boy couldn't be more than 8 or 9. Where do you stay? She asked gently. Where do you sleep? Samir shrugged. Wherever it's quiet. Parks, rooftops, behind the old movie theater. Sometimes the shelters let me in, but I like the sky better. The room went still for a moment, just the sound of city noise in the distance and the soft hum of the lights. Camille leaned forward, her voice soft and serious. I don't know why this happened, why you saw me, but if you hadn't warned me, I might not be here now. Samir looked at her then, really looked, and said, I saw it again, last night, after the crash, you were in the car again. And this time you didn't survive. Camille's chest tightened, her fingers gripping the edge of her chair. Then I can't ride again, she whispered. I won't, Samir nodded slowly. They'll try again, but not tonight, tomorrow. In a different way. Camille stood and walked to the window. The skyline lit in gold and white. You're staying here tonight, she said without turning around. You'll be safe here. Samir shifted in his seat. Unsure. I don't belong here, he said. But Camille turned to with steady eyes. You saved my life. That means you belong here more than anyone. She led him to a guest room, soft sheets folded neatly on a bed too big for his small frame. He looked around with wide eyes, then back at her with something between wonder and fear. Camille gave him a quiet smile. Rest. If you see anything else, tell me. As the door clicked softly behind her, she leaned her back against the hallway wall and let out a slow breath. Something had changed in her. Something that numbers and money couldn't fix. And she knew that tomorrow would bring more than business. It would bring a test, and the only reason she would be ready for it was because of a boy who dreamed the truth while the rest of the world slept. Before the sun rose the next morning, Camille was already awake. She hadn't slept much. Maybe an hour at most. Her eyes were tired, but her mind was wide open. Every sound in the building felt louder. Every shadow outside seemed to stretch a little longer than it should. Her phone buzzed quietly on the kitchen counter. She rushed over and answered. It was her head of security. 2 men spotted near the parking garage, he said. They ran when approached. Police are tracking them now. Camille's breath caught in her chest. Her hand shook slightly as she gripped the phone. She turned to look toward the hallway where Samir was still asleep in the guest room. He had been right again. Everything he said was real. Every warning had come true a few hours later. Camille sat in her office with the security team, reviewing camera footage. There they were, the same 2 men Samir described, one wearing a hoodie pulled tight, the other with a faint scar running down his cheek. They had been hiding behind a dumpster near the garage, waiting, watching. The police confirmed it. Both men had ties to a local gang known for staged robberies and data theft. One of them had connections to a disgruntled former contractor who was let go 6 months earlier. It wasn't a random attack, it was planned. And Samir had seen it all before it happened. Camille leaned back in her chair, overwhelmed by the weight of everything. The crash, the threats, the boy who appeared from nowhere and changed everything. She couldn't understand how it worked, but she didn't need to. All she knew was that without him, she wouldn't be sitting here now. Later that afternoon, Camille found Samir in the living room, curled on the couch under a soft blanket. He looked up as she entered, his face calm, his eyes still holding more wisdom than any child should have. She sat down beside him and placed a small notebook in front of him. What's this? He asked quietly, picking it up carefully. This is your journal, Camille said. From now on, whenever you see something, whenever you dream, write it down, no matter how strange or small it seems. Samir nodded slowly, flipping through the blank pages, his fingers brushing across the smooth paper, like it was something precious. I also want you to stay here, Camille added. Not just tonight, not just this week, but as long as you want. This place is your home now. Samir looked up sharply, his eyes wide. But I don't belong here, he said again. Softly Camille shook her head. You saved my life. You protected someone you didn't even know. You belong here more than most people I've met in this world." Tears welled in Samir's eyes but didn't fall. He looked down again, hugging the notebook to his chest. "Thank you," he whispered. In the days that followed, Camille made changes, big ones. She canceled 2 upcoming business trips, rescheduled every high-risk meeting, and focused her time on creating something new. Something important. She called it the Light Watch Initiative, a program to find and support gifted children living in the streets or in difficult places. Kids like Samir who saw the world differently, who had been ignored, forgotten, left behind. The first donation came from her own personal account, a large amount with no conditions. Her team was surprised, investors even more so. But Camille didn't explain. She didn't need to. Something inside her had shifted. Her heart had opened in a way it never had before. Each morning, she shared breakfast with Samir. They talked about dreams, about life, about the small things. He remembered about his mother. One day he said something that stayed with her. "I used to think my dreams were a curse. But maybe they're a reason I'm still here." Camille smiled at him. "Maybe they're the reason I'm still here too," she said gently, her voice warm. On the balcony one evening, they watched the sky turn gold and rose. The city lights blinked down below. The noise of traffic was distant, soft, like a song with no words. Camille turned to Samir and said, "You changed my life, Samir, not just by saving it, but by showing me what really matters." Samir leaned on the railing beside her, the wind brushing through his curls. "Sometimes I still see scary things," he admitted. "But now I don't feel alone anymore." Camille rested a hand on his shoulder, firm and reassuring. "You're not alone. Not ever again." And as the sun slipped below the skyline, painting everything in light and shadow, they stood side by side. A boy who once had nowhere to go, and a woman who once thought she had everything. Bound by something greater than luck, more powerful than fear, a warning had brought them together. But a choice had made them family, and that choice changed both of their lives forever.